warm good morning to all of you present here for this open source talk as part of our Tech Lab Talks, and I'm very glad to invite Digant Rao. He's a senior at ECE department last year, and right now he's a graduate student at University of Southern California. He's present here for the talk, and my beloved friend Manas Shivakumar. He's also a open source contributor, and he has been an Google Summer of Code contributor last year along with Digant. So welcome to you guys. Thank you for taking time even at the Saturday morning. So yeah, up to you, Marcus. So you can start sharing it.
Thanks, Bharat, for introducing us and inviting us for this talk. Really glad to be here.
Yeah. Also, slight correction. I did apply. I didn't get in, but I'm still happy to give my inputs. But it's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll be having a very interactive session today because we're doing it in Menti, and yeah, so we'll go ahead. It's Google Summer of Code, an open source tool. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Bharat. I'll take one from now. So to all the participants in the meeting room, could you please go to this website link and give a thumbs up so that we know that you have access to this portal. So I wanted to know a little bit about the audience. So do the participants mind telling us which year are you guys studying in? Okay, I see a couple of third years. Okay, this is the right time for searching internships and working on hackathons. Yeah, very good. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. Wow. All right. Okay, so we have a lot of couple of first years here. Okay. All right. Yeah. Right. So I see more first years than other years. So I'll try to assume as less as information as possible. So just to ask something before we start, what do you guys expect from this talk? So what do you guys expect to learn from this talk, or is there something you're specifically looking out for? Please feel free to write it as words in the text box. Join Google. Actually, it was the case before. So once you did GSOC, they used to give you out free referrals and you could join Google in the future. But from 2020, they have discontinued that process. So unfortunately, we can't do that anymore. Okay, so join open source
I mean,
contribution.
it is a great addition to your resume as well. So you might end up joining, who knows?
Yeah, you never know. That itself is enough for you to join for sure. Okay, contribution to know about GSOC. See a lot of GSOC. Okay. All right. Experience required, perfect proposal, zero down on the area. Okay, guys. Seems very good. So let's start right away. Um, so Digant, what do you think is open source?
I mean, it's a very, it's just two words to describe something like enormous. It's something you have to, do to, like, you need to experience it and like find out what it actually is, because you can't really define it. It's, you could think of it as one, working on your coding skills by working on popular repositories like across the world, or you could, you could work with other people as well who you wouldn't even meet if you don't work on open source. It's an idea that you get to share your software around for free for everyone to use and to create more stuff based on your software. So that's what I think it is, but that's like a very small meaning. What do you think?
I think it is a platform for people to come and meet together, and like as you said, it just allows you to meet people who you can never meet in person. And it's like more of a volunteer experience. People come together, they have the same mindset, so you get to meet a
Yeah,
lot of new
exactly.
people and learn a lot of. um, Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So GSOC, so Google Summer of Code, is one of the programs that is trying to encourage open source participation from an undergraduate level. So Google Summer of Code is a program managed by Google itself, and they've been doing it for the past 10 years. And their aim is to encourage students and professionals to who are beginners in open source to contribute to open source organizations to, you know, help them understand what technology is all about and work on cutting edge stuff as well. Digant, what do you think about?
One second, my net seems pretty bad. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, it just froze a bit. Yeah, you were saying something?
So I was just asking you, what do you think about GSOC?
I mean, so when you think about open source, right, GSOC is one of those pinnacle programs which lets you actually kickstart your, entry into the open source world. It's a very nice and structured program that doesn't require you to go searching as much for like open source repositories to contribute to, because they have a huge list of, uh, one second. Yeah, they have a huge list of organizations and projects that they've included in their website, which they've already vetted and thought that could be good, places for you to begin with. And GSOC is one of those very few programs that assumes that you have no experience. They encourage people to, with zero experience to apply because they want you to enter into the world of open source. The only prerequisites you might have are you might need to know a bit of programming, but apart from that, that's really it. So it's a very inclusive program and it's a very popular one as well.
Yeah, that is so much true. And GSOC, I mean, the transformation for people who have even attempted to participate in the program, nevertheless, they get into the program, but even participating in the program, it transforms their like their personal
Yeah,
profile into a very huge level.
yeah, like a very big agree to that because I did that and like I applied to this organization called Active Loop, and even if I like even when I didn't get in, right, I like they liked my contribution so much they offered me an internship to work with them directly. So I got to work with them for like 6 months without having to participate in GSOC. So in the end, like I ended up working with the company directly as well. So GSOC really opens a lot of doors to you, ones that you didn't know even existed. Like who would have thought of, like searching for internships would be possible. Like, I'm sure like third years are going around applying to internships and all that. Like if you apply to GSOC as well, it opens the door for you to work in the US without having to, study or without having to, like have a visa or something like that. Like internships are very important for you. They're a huge stepping stone in your career, and GSOC is one of those programs that you know gives you the opportunity to get internships.
Yeah, I agree to that as well. And not just GSOC doesn't open doors to professional endeavors as well. It could open endeavors to your academic profile as well. So there are organizations such as CERN or my organization, which is OSGeo. They work on geospatial libraries or physical quantum research or stuff. You could, by contributing to their software, you could eventually start working with them as a research student or a research assistant. So it not only
Yeah,
opens
exactly.
doors inside professional, but also as in academic fields as well.
Yep.
So GSOC, for anybody who's like who wants to be a part of as a GSOCer, you need to know all of these. So the eligibility for GSOC is open to everybody. You just have to be above the age of 18. Recently, they've opened it up to professionals as well. So you'll be competing with a lot more people, but still, it is open to students. The right time, I would say, for a person to start looking at GSOC would be from their second year. That's when they have ample amount of courses taken in computer science or like even general computer science, and they actually want to try out some tech domain like web dev or app dev, machine learning, anything. So the rules for GSOC are simple. You need to choose an organization, so that organization could be working on anything. So they could be working on, say, like TensorFlow, they're working on machine learning platforms or frameworks, or it could be another organization like Actaloop, which actually tries to make the data engineering steps of machine learning much more simpler. So the organizations could be anything, and you simply have to choose three. You can choose up to three organizations, and for each organization, you're supposed to draft a proposal saying, over the course of 3 months in the summer, What are you going to do for them? What feature are you going to integrate to their software, and how is it going to benefit their open source repository as such? So typically, organizations announce that they're participating in GSOC at the time of February to mid March. That's when you see a lot of organizations like applying for Google, and Google accepts those organizations. So the number of slots each organizations get depends on their previous performance and their popularity. So by slots, I mean each organization has a limit to how many number of students they can sponsor. So based on that, they look at how many proposals they want to work on and how many projects they want to work on. So typically, like I said before, the organizations start applying at February to mid March, and the students can apply immediately, like 1 week after that, from March to April. And after that, the results will be announced in May, and you will start, working with the organizations from that time till September or even November. So about the organizations, like I said, could be literally anything. They can range from silicon to all the way up to the cloud. So you could be working on somebody who's like developing a music player for some music software, or somebody who's working on DevOps or Kubernetes. Yeah. And for the writing a proposal is a very intricate art, and we would definitely like to talk about it more in the coming slides. But again, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, about like the ideas that you have, like you mentioned that you need to convince the organization as to why your proposal is good and what feature you want to implement and so on and so forth, right? So I
Yeah.
just want to make it a bit more clear that while you can suggest your own features to implement into their code base, the organizations usually also have a list of ideas that they want to see implemented in their code base in the coming future, and they want a student intern, like uh, an intern from GSOC, preferably to implement it for them. They'll give you mentors and all that. So your proposal is also going to be more about why you're the right person for the job, rather than what features you're going to implement and so on.
Exactly. Thanks for adding that. It is more like why should they choose you, and what
Yeah.
benefit do they get over choosing you over the other people, for sure.
Yeah. And since you can also in GSOC, I think, I'm not sure if they've changed the limit, but it's usually a limit of three proposals per student. So you can apply to three different organizations potentially. So the amount of competition you get for just one single organization is going to be huge. So you have to factor in that and make your proposal as, intricate as possible, as Manas said.
Yeah, and also, like, the competition for GSOC is very stiff. About 4,000 students apply, and assuming every student at least writes two proposals on average, you have 8,000 proposals, and there are like only 1,000 organizations. So you could expect each project in an organization to get up to like what, 5 or 10 competitors. So you need to be, we'll talk about it, but you need to take GSOC as a very work at GSOC in a very devoted manner. Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
So how much time do you think is ideal for devoting to GSOC? Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about the preparation before you get selected, right?
Yeah, before you get
So,
selected.
I mean, in my opinion, obviously, if you have like more time, it's going to be better for your proposal, right? But if you want to start somewhere, because I think right now organizations are also
I can't hear you.
hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's audible.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying that I like the organizations for this year's GSOC might already have been announced. I haven't checked, but
Yeah,
right
it's
now would
March.
be, yeah, a great time to at least start looking at organizations and seeing what projects they have to offer. Because when you write a proposal, it needs to be very well thought out and needs to come, like when you it's kind of like working on a code base as well. When you implement a new feature, you got to look at all the edge cases, if you got to see if all your test cases pass, whatever tests you can think of, and so on and so forth. So you, when you write your proposal, you need to worry about your implementation of the feature. Does it cover everything that they ask for? So ideally, you would start looking right now for organizations and projects. Shortlist your projects in, the coming weeks, like maybe 2 to 3 weeks should be enough to look at all the organizations and select a few projects you want to work on. And from 2 weeks onward, you could also start working on your proposals, because in your proposals you also have to include a time breakdown. You need to talk about what you'd be doing in week 1 of GSOC, week 2 of GSOC. You need to mention that you need to complete these many items in your, checklist. You need to finish off these items. So ideally, when GSOC is at its half, like when GSOC is only, how do I put this? Half completed, right? When GSOC is half completed, you should have finished implementing half of your checklist items. So yeah, a lot of time is required. So better start now. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's not also about planning way ahead in the future. You also want to get your idea fine tuned and polished by your mentor. So your mentor might have some thoughts on your proposal, and he might want to make ask you to make some changes on it. So you might want to incorporate some more, a couple of iterations for you to change, and the time associated with that.
Yeah. One more thing I'd like to add actually. So, when you look at how much time needs to be devoted for GSOC, it doesn't like just start right now, because you need to. So, Manas, you mentioned that you need to fine tune your proposal with mentors and so on and so forth. But if you interact with mentors outside of GSOC, like if you've, let's say, already contributed to their code base and you've worked on a few like important features they wanted completed on your own without having like any incentive such as GSOC, that's just a normal open source contribution. Then your mentors
Yeah.
in that organization are much more inclined to, you know, look at your proposal better and give you more feedback because they know you're capable of working on this project, because open source is all about quality. You can't just submit some pull request to an open source organization and expect them to just merge it, right? You need to make sure that it passes all their quality checks. You need to make sure that it implements what you says it implements, and so on. So
Yeah.
like prior open source contributions are very much welcomed, although they're not really required in the sense that, like, when you apply to a like organization at GSOC, sometimes they might ask you to just submit a pull request for a beginner issue that they want solved, so that they know that you're capable of participating in GSOC. But if you've already done that before in their organization, they won't ask you to do it. So it's like that.
Yeah, so I mean, you could, in brief, say that the organization wants to know if you're even capable of, working on a product. So basically, they just want to know if you could use Git properly. Do you understand the community standards for the code base, and if you could understand their code base and also add features to it. So that is not time bound. It depends. It's a very subjective answer, and it depends on each person. But if you could think about the time you need for GSOC is basically you need to get accustomed to their code base, and be capable of solving issues in their Git repositories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what is the best way to choose an organization? I think this is the question that's going around in everybody's mind. There are so many organizations, like a thousand plus organizations. How do you choose the best organization?
So I would say you have to play to your strengths, right? Like you mentioned that in your second year, you might end up going on a domain like web dev or app dev or something like that. So you want to see which organizations are already involved in those domains first, because there's no point in writing a proposal to some company or some organization that you've never worked with before, right? Like take me for example, I was mostly interested in machine learning, deep learning, so I applied to, like data engineering, machine learning organizations. But it wouldn't make sense for me to apply to, say, chemistry or like astronomy organizations, right? because they are working on something completely different. So you gotta make sure to that you find organizations that are involved in domains that you like, but you also have to, like, you have to be a little realistic also at times. And if you see a very popular organization like TensorFlow, take for example TensorFlow, when you apply to them, you have to make sure your proposal is top notch. So you have to make sure when you choose an organization, you know how much time you have to devote to those people. Like, I'm not saying that the proposal itself is going to differ in quality, but you know that TensorFlow and other like open source repositories like TensorFlow are going to have at least 30 to 40 students for one slot. So it's going to be a very tough competition. You have to find like a very specific need in an organization which you can cater to.
Yeah, that seems right. Basically, it is better to start with something that you already know the prerequisites for. So,
Yeah.
sticking to app dev, which you already might be aware of the tech stack, you're good at Flutter or app dev or something, you could easily, pick up the things and you could directly start working on the features instead of, learning app dev and then choosing which feature to pick. But this would work out if you start way early. Like I started way back in September for GSOC 2022 and was like looking for organizations which I find are playing to my strengths and also organizations that I want to contribute to, I want to be a part of. So it does help. I was more into software development and machine learning at that point. But machine learning organizations, like he said, like TensorFlow, they have a lot of people competing. I was particularly interested in an organization called MLPack, and they basically develop the same toolkits that are in Python for C++. And the competition for that was very fierce, that just looking at the proposals, you wouldn't even want to attend for that. It's that difficult. People take put that much effort, and they are very knowledgeable. So when you're competing with people who already have the knowledge and already have submitted, like already have the rapport with the organization, it will be difficult for you to overshadow them and make sure your proposal stands out.
Yeah. Just to make something clear, we're not telling you not to apply to TensorFlow, right? We're just saying that when you apply, you have to know that there are people who have been working on this for, like, these people have been contributing to TensorFlow itself for the past like 2 to 3 years, and they're just going on GSOC because they want a feature that's available, like they want to implement, which is also going to be through GSOC, and they get paid for it. Open source is usually very free, right? So GSOC is a very nice big paid opportunity as well to work on open source. And there are a lot of people who've already contributed and are just wanting to go work, contribute to the same organization, but now get paid for it. So my point is, if like organizations like TensorFlow require you to have already contributed to them so that you know what their tech stack is, you know what kind of issues they're facing, and you can easily work on their, problems and form a really good proposal.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So we have a question from the audience saying, how hard is it to get into GSOC? We just are getting started into open source and you have experience in Python. So I would suggest, you look at organizations that have the code base is written in Python. So popular organizations might include, Django or Django comes to mind. I'm not sure about other organizations, but you could.
I mean, the Python Foundation is an entire is an entire organization in GSOC as
We
well.
have
So
somebody from who have already worked on Python. So Python Software Foundation is an umbrella organization. There are a lot of sub organizations within that, and all of them do work in Python. So I think DFF, ML, Active Hub, and like there are a couple of more. You could look into that, and these are very good organizations to begin with. And most of them are mostly into machine learning or uh, the pure hard sciences. So be ready for that. Yeah.
yeah, I just like to say that this is the same thing when you're this is you are actually made for GSOC here, because GSOC does not require you to have open source experience. It's just when you apply, to very popular repositories, you are, mandated to have some experience, because they can't just accept everyone, right? But there are organizations who are coming in for the first time, second time, and they're willing to teach you all about this stack. They're willing to, work with you and make sure that you understand where they're coming from and how you can properly contribute to them. So this is perfect, because if you have experience in Python, there are a lot of organizations that are actually like working purely with Python, not just PSF. That PSF is the Python Software Foundation. So, it's a great thing. You can just get started now and draft a proposal to whatever Python organization you want to.
Yeah. So as I hope this answered your question. Okay. So now comes the hard part. So once you've picked an organization which you like, based on the tech stack or, where you see yourself in, a couple of years, how do you even start contributing to an organization? I mean, where do you start?
Manas, do you want to take this or do you want me to take this?
Okay, maybe I could start with it. So,
Yeah.
even contributing to an organization, it's a very you have to be very planned about it. So usually organizations communicate on an open source platform like Gitter or Slack or Element for that matter, and you would want to first go there and introduce yourself and state your intention that you want to contribute to open source, you're new to open source, and you would like to get started with your organization. I would suggest that would be your good first step. And before that, I would also like suggest people parallelly look at their organization's code base. So for every organization either has a Git repository in either GitLab or GitHub, and in that they have detailed instructions in their readme file. So readme file is like a markdown file telling the person, anybody who's new to that repository, what is that we do, and how can you use our code, and also how to contribute to us. So that is the best place to get started. You go to the organization's GitHub repository, you look at their readme file, and you understand what the code is all about. You run it locally, so you try to deploy it yourself and see if you can actually do what they're saying they are capable of doing. And also, after you run it locally, you could then think about trying to understand the code. So what is the intricacies inside the code base, and how it connects all the different components. And this is the time when you're doing it parallelly, you should come back to the organization and say, hey, I'm actually running this code, I'm getting some error, or I don't completely understand how this is working. Do you mind explaining it? And this is good for two reasons. So this first lets helps you work on the project, and for second, which is most important, it lets the organization know that you are interested in their software and you actually have taken the step to run it, and you want to know more about it. So they encourage this kind of behavior, and they want to help you understand the code base better. So once you've understood like what is the code all about and what does the organization do, it is then a very good idea to solve some GitHub issues. So the reason why you need to like work on the project before even you write the proposal is because you have to somehow state that you're capable of solving working with your software, and also you have the necessary skills to work on it. So resumes are a good starting point. They do look at resumes and look at the projects you worked on to understand if you have the knowledge. But working on their software is even more better. It just gets better, and it really tells them that you understand how to work with it. You understand how to uh, use the tech stack, and you also understand how their code works and stuff. So before you even write your proposal, you should first go into GitHub issues. So inside GitHub, they have a lot of panels. You have the code panel, then you have the issues panel, then you have the pull request panel. So in the issues panel, they have couple of issues. So these issues are basically what the organization is trying to fix on their code base. It could be an enhancement issue or a bug issue or a simple drag issue. So basically the organizations, when they want newcomers to participate, they have a tag called good first issue. I think this is very important for you guys to note on. So when you go to an organization and in the issue panel, there's something called the good first issue, and you could basically, that's basically capable of getting solved by a beginner who's like completely new to the code base, needs no ramp up, and he can just directly solve it. So once you could actually work on solving those good first issues, and raise a pull request for that. I hope everybody here knows what a pull request is, but so I think does everybody know what a pull request is here? um, Please feel free to say in the comments if you guys don't know what a pull request is. So I assume everybody knows what a pull request is. I'll just reiterate it if anybody is shy. So
I
a pull
think it's like it might be better to show them. Like if I could just share my screen, like I have the
Sure,
yeah.
yeah, you could.
So let me just share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, yep.
Okay, so we're in the TensorFlow repository, guys. This is a huge repository with about 2000 issues. Don't worry, you're not going to look at like 95% of these issues. What you're going to do is you're going to see the labels here. Click on the labels and search for good first issue. So they have a tag called good first issue, like Manav said. And here you can see that there are only good first issues open. So let's just go inside, and you can read the issue here. So this is all just like specific, like to this issue, like details, like this is a bug and it's occurring in this version on this platform, and whether it's happening on mobiles or whatever, and they're talking about this and they're asking you to fix it. All right, now you don't need to worry about all this. So this is just their automated like account, just adding type labels and all that. Now there are there are a lot of people replying on like this. So this is what Manas meant by open communication as well. When you look at a GitHub issue, you're able to comment on it. So you have the opportunity to see if anyone else has worked on this issue before, and if they've not, you can ask whether you can be assigned to this issue. So here, this person is saying he's able to reproduce this issue. He's providing some, like references as well. So that's just more information. And usually in like, let me try pulling up the other. Like there are people who are going to ask if they can, contribute. Okay, looks like I hearted this. No. Hmm. Yeah, so usually you have people like commenting, looking into this, and they'll make pull requests. Like, so this is a pull request. Okay, let's go here. So basically, for the issue we just saw, somebody has created a pull request that fixes this issue. Okay, so this a pull request is a bunch of code that you've written to add to the main repository such that it fixes the issue that was assigned to you. So he's talking about what the issue is here, and he's talking about what he's written, like what he's done. So this PR, this pull request adds a go function to do this, to do so on and so forth. And he's added like three commits, which basically mean when you use Git, when you add your code to their code base, or when you add it to your code base, you have to commit it. So like I don't think we can really go into a crash course on Git right now, but yeah, feel free to look it up. So he's included this much code. You can see what and all code he's included, and so on and so forth. So this is a pull request. Does anyone have any questions about that? Anything you want me to explain here?
I
Uh,
assume everything is clear.
yeah, there are no questions in the presentation, right? I don't have that open.
Um, we have a question. Yeah, we don't have any questions. Yeah,
Okay,
nothing more.
perfect. So going
Could
back,
could you go to that README page as
go to their README page.
yeah, README page. I just
You
wanted to
mean
show the
this?
README page. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the
So
README page is basically just an introduction to whatever repository you're looking at, right? So we're at the TensorFlow repository. It has a bunch of links here, like for the documentation, for the like try your first TensorFlow program, and here we go. Here are the contribution guidelines. So this is something you need to look for in every open source repository, because some open source repositories have different ways to contribute. Like some might say we want you to follow these standards, like these guidelines, so that like whenever you contribute something, you need to follow these rules, read the code of conduct, ensure you signed this agreement, follow their style guidelines, and run their unit tests. So a lot of repositories have this in detail, like TensorFlow. TensorFlow has to have it in detail because they're a huge repository, right? So as you can see, there are so many files just for contribution. You have to read the code of conduct. You have to format your issues like this, in this issue template. Then you gotta read the security guidelines and so on and so forth. But that's about it for, like the contribution guidelines. You can also read the README for documentation, API, references. You can look at their builds for what platforms and so on and so forth. Is there anything you'd like to add, Manas?
No, I think you covered most all of it.
Yeah. So just actually going back to those issues, right? It's this, just imagine you're in any repository, leave TensorFlow, right? For now, just go type good first issue here, look at the issues that are opened here, see if there is anyone who's already working on this. So you can see the assignees here. If no one is assigned, that means nobody is working on this issue. If it's open, that is. If it's closed, you don't need to look at it, right? Because it's fixed. So you can write a comment here. You can just say, hi, can I work on this issue? Thanks. Is there anything I need to know before I begin? So I'm not going to post this. I don't work on TensorFlow. So you can just write something like that. You can comment it, and some maintainer in the repository is going to reply to you and tell you what you need to do in order to fix this issue. So, oh, here we go. Is this feature still not integrated? I will gladly help. Can you designate it to me? Unfortunately, no one's replied to this guy. Maybe he should follow up. He should write following up on this and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's how you actually start working on open source repositories. And you can also join their Slack channels. You can join their whatever platform they're on. You can see where they need help, and you can reply to them on Slack, and you can basically get to know what they need help with and help them with that.
Yeah. And one more thing I would like to add is that you have to take into account that people are working with in different time zones. So it's better to, say share whatever you want with the organization as descriptive as possible. So make your pull request as descriptive as possible. What have you done? What is the problem you're facing? And just be have a very clear communication. It is not as like a WhatsApp chat, say, where you say hi and the person replies in another 2 minutes, then you start a conversation like that. So there are some etiquette that needs to be followed while you're communicating in an open source environment. So please do keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that helps a lot because communication with these people, or people who are in different time zones, is very key.
Mm. And one more thing is that, in open source, the communication also has to be open. So you saw in the issues that, people were already saying, I'm already interested in this issue and I want to work on it. And the mentor replies to that issue. So in case if this wasn't an open communication and the person directly like sends a DM to that person, how will other people on who are interested in that project get to know that, he's interested in working on that? He's already done some work on it. So that doesn't work out, right? So you need to be as open as possible. You have to go and talk in their comment channel, which would be either their Slack channel or a Gitter channel. And you need to keep your say update all of them. So you wouldn't be updating one person, you would be updating the entire community that is working on it. And you are open to feedback from anybody basically.
Yep.
So yeah, that's how you start to contribute to an organization. And once you like once you may raise a pull request and solve issues, you could then parallelly also start working on your proposal. So this is where you say you propose a timeline, as in like you're going to implement feature A by this 2 weeks, feature B by 3 weeks, and this is what it's going to add to the organization, how is it going to look like. So maybe we could show one of our we could show both of the proposals at the end, and we'll show you how we described what we are going to like what we wrote actually. So like I wrote that at the end of the program, I'll be providing three endpoints for three functions which would look like this, and the results would look like that, and so and so. So you have to think about that, and take into account design considerations as well from the mentors and as well from you, right? So that's how you contribute to an organization. So this is like the whole core of the talk, I would say. So do you guys have any questions on this, like any kind of questions? Do you guys have anything you guys want to ask? Digant, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh no, I think you covered it.
Yeah, okay. So I think we have no questions on this either. So yeah. So how did GSOC help us in our career? I am pretty sure everybody wonders that. So how exactly did it help in our career, Digant?
I mean, I mentioned this before, right? I think I did, where I applied to GSOC and I wasn't able to get in, but the mentors I applied under told me that, I was just like nudged by one proposal. So if that person hadn't submitted like that like amazing proposal, I would have got it. But they were willing to offer me an internship with them directly. So I ended up, working with them on the same thing that I wanted to work on in GSOC as well, just directly and not under GSOC. That's it. But like it made a huge difference in my resume at least, and I ended up, studying masters here. So I guess it did help me a lot. But yeah, I guess it's a very subjective question, but you can say in general it does like do wonders for your resume.
Yeah, so
Even
I
like
would
yeah,
say GSOC is like, a starting point to any domain of your choice. So if you're like just starting to look into machine learning and you want to enter machine learning, this could be like the perfect platform for you to kickstart your journey into machine learning. So this could, act as a like a project or slash like a like no, I wouldn't say a mini project. I wouldn't say like a mini internship for, to get other internships in the industry. So yes, this would, even it helps in masters as well, because it shows you that you have the technical expertise and you have the interest in working on the domain. So yeah,
yeah. It
it
also
does help.
teaches you like actual industry practices, when you go work in
Exactly.
a company in an internship or as a full-time employee, you will notice that you're doing the same things as you did in GSOC, just through the company. GSOC teaches you all that, and it's completely free. You don't even need to take a course to learn it or whatever. It teaches you stuff like unit testing, code quality, because you're accountable. When you open a pull request, it's your code, you're responsible for what happens. So that really makes you think about the quality of the code and whether it should pass all your test cases, whether it's formatted properly. So it's a really high quality request which you make, and that really helps you in the long run as well.
Yeah. And GSOC is not only about personal development. I think it also helps you grow your network. So, GSOC, just participating, trying for GSOC, contributing to an organization, you got an internship at Active Hub. So it does help you grow, expand your network, gets you in touch with, new people who are working on exciting things. And, you
Yeah,
could, talk to them. Get maybe internship is not what we're looking out for. It's merely a side effect. What we're looking out is for connections and help from people who are very capable and very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, this is just an extension. Do you just want to add something, Digant?
Oh no, I
Alex?
mean, it's like your experience is going to be just for you. You know, you're gonna have so much fun when you go into GSOC, and it's just going to be like the time of your life at that point in time. Is all I can say. You know, can't really talk about the technical stuff because who wants to hear that, right? But yeah,
Exactly. Uh, yeah, so I mean, for me, I think it was like, surreal to get selected to GSOC itself, but after that, it's like more, personal to everybody. I mean, I had a lot of learnings as such. I started writing blogs. I got started into technical writing, and but not
yeah,
just about career development. It's like talking to people, being a part of an organization, being a part of a community that is, having that, wholesomeness of being part of something makes you work more harder. So
yeah. Speaking of documentation, there's another open source program by Google. I think it's the Season of Docs, which will get you started into technical writing if you want to go into that alone, which is also a very helpful program.
yeah, it's called Google Season of Docs. You guys might as well check that if you're checking GSOC.
Yeah. Same requirements as GSOC, no difference.
Do they have to make a proposal? I'm not sure about
Yeah,
that.
I think they do.
Okay, right. Yeah, okay. And the actually the stipend for that is very good as well. I think it's more than GSOC, so that's
Yeah,
more
I mean, technical
incentive.
documentation is like you need to make it like, as easy to understand and concise as well. So there's a lot of money in that.
And one more thing I would like to mention is that any form of contribution is still a contribution. I hope you guys don't have the aversion towards, I can't work on documentation or I can't make simple fixes like this. I just want to work on the hardcore algorithm or a feature. You should erase that mindset from you right away. And, any contribution is considered a contribution, and documentation is just as important, as working on a core feature. So need to be ready for picking any kind of issue, and you have to prove you have to prove yourself that you can do that before you go and work on the core stuff. I can understand that people would be more interested and more in, um, what do you say, aligned to work on that in the core features, but you should also give equal attention to the documentation issues.
Yeah,
Do you agree with that, Digant?
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, working on core features is something you can only do as a seasoned, open source contributor. It's not something you should or could jump into like right away. So you got to work on the small things first, supposedly small things, because you need to grow as a developer as well.
Yeah. Mm. So we have some questions. Yeah. Yeah, we've answered these questions. And yeah, so do you guys have any questions before we end this session? So we have our LinkedIn's and the proposals attached. Maybe we could go through that as well. But do you guys have any questions?
Oh, I think, if you guys are like willing to stay for like 5 more minutes, one of us could just pull up our proposal and just go through it very briefly. Because I think a lot of you are also here to see what a proposal looks like.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah. So we have a comment. Okay, how does GSOC help us with our MS profile? I think Digant, it's more suited to for you to answer this question.
So when you say MS profile, first you have to understand that applying to a master's degree is a whole different uh, scenario as well. You have to look at factors like whether you want to do research or whether you want to move into the industry after finishing your master's degree. So GSOC is, I wouldn't say GSOC is purely an industrial internship because you do have research organizations like Manas said, but it is considered like, a very, it is considered a, professional level internship and not something like a research assistantship or something like a research position. So it helps me with my profile because I don't want to do research and I want to move into the industry afterwards. So when I applied to terminal degrees in my so a terminal degree is a degree which gets over after 2 years. So non-terminal degrees could be like your PhD programs or thesis programs, which take more than 2 years to complete. But when you apply, you have to make sure that your profile is as aligned to what you want to do as possible. So if you want to move into the industry, you have to make sure that you have industry internships, or you have some uh, applications, develop some practical stuff on your resume, like projects or you know hackathons or so on and so forth. You need to have like tangible products. But if you're moving into research, you need to have more on more publications, more research assistantships, stuff like that. So GSOC really helps either way, but it could help you more because if you're moving to if you're planning to move into the industry.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question. Okay, can we contact you after this session for suggestions in our GSOC proposal and source contribution in general? Yeah, I think we'd be open to that.
Yeah,
We
of
can
course. I
share
mean,
our LinkedIn accounts.
yeah, just scan the QR codes, follow us, and you can ask us there.
Yeah. I mean, we suggest you not just limit with this, but you ask previous GSOCers who have done in organizations of your interest, or other organizations as well. So this could be a good reason for you to connect with like random people on LinkedIn. People you have never met, but you have something in common and you just want to connect. That could be a good networking opportunity as well.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. The last day of submission for proposal is April 4. Would 2 weeks be enough to choose a project to open source and work on it? Uh, uh, I'm
Very
it
subjective.
very subjective again. It depends. It depends. So there is a like as we spoke about, there are a lot of things you need to do. You need to first establish a communication with the organization. You have to show that you have expertise in the product, and also you are willing to stay and work on the you have to make a proposal as well. So 2 weeks, I guess it's not even enough to make a proposal, but if you are very familiar with the code base, you could probably patch up one and submit it. But if you just have 2 weeks, and I would suggest you spend all those 2 weeks on your proposal, I would highly recommend that you choose an organization that plays to your strengths, either in the tech stack or in the domain. That's just
Yeah,
my 2 cents.
2 weeks is, buddy. 2 weeks is not enough. Short and sweet. You can't, because even if you are willing to spend like 24 hours a day working on your proposal, you need to send it to your mentors, and your mentors are not going to be free all the time. So they're going to reply to you after 2 to 3 days, and you can't do anything until they give you their feedback because you can't improve on your proposal. So it's more on just, it's not about whether you can do it in 2 weeks. It's more about whether you can get your feedback, you can submit a proper proposal within 2 weeks. So no, it won't be enough.
Yeah, it wouldn't be enough because there are people who are trying for GSOC for over 6 months and they still fail. So even working on a project for 6 months isn't guaranteed of a successful admission. So you can understand what would 2 weeks of effort
So
get you.
wait, I have a follow-up question. So to choose a project, by choose a, do you have projects like lined up already? Have you spoken to people about this? Like if you're completely starting from scratch, like right now, I don't think it's possible, man. But if you have already put in some sort of groundwork, right? If you've spoken with a few mentors, if you've, like asked them what they want in the proposal. I'm assuming that you haven't contributed to the repository because you mentioned, right, like do open source and work. But if you've spoken to some of the mentors already, that could be like a good place to finish your proposal pretty quickly because you've already got their feedback.
Yeah, 100%. That is true. Yeah. So yeah, I hope we've answered your question. Are there any more questions? Yeah, please feel free to leave a question if you have one, and you can also scan our QR codes here for a LinkedIn to communicate with us in the future. Um, Maybe Digant, you could share your proposal and explain.
Yeah, 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, your screen is up.
Yeah. Okay, so this was my previous proposal. So you can start off with, so since I was applying to the Python Software Foundation, they had some rules for the proposal formatting as well. I needed to include details like these, but as a rule, you should do this anyway, even if they don't tell you to, because it just helps make like structure it more. So this is just a one liner about what my project is going to do, details about me, about my undergraduate studies, and a little blurb about what I've done, and so on. So here, with Active Loop, they wanted me to include my previous open source contributions, preferably to their repository. So I've added those here. And so how I got started with, applying um, to, like issues, right? Let me just open one. I hope this link works. Yeah, this link works. So I just created like a pull request with respect to a particular issue which was open at that time. I didn't include the issue number, did I? No, I didn't. So I just created a pull request, spoke with them, got some feedback about it, and kept reiterating about like what I should do when this case happens, or like could you log a warning when this command is invoked. I added a commit for that, let them know, ask them about feedback, and then they merged it. So what I'm trying to say is you shouldn't feel afraid of opening pull requests or opening issues. If you've spoken with the mentors, if you've spoken with people about this already, they aren't going to mind. They are going to welcome you with open arms and tell you thank you for opening this issue or this pull request. Let's check it out and see whether we need it like this or like that or whatever. So that's the beauty of open source, because you can see that they welcome you in and they want you to contribute to their repository. So here are my commits or my contributions to that repository. You could also take a look at Hacktoberfest, which is another event. This doesn't require any sort of selection. Like it's after that, I was asked to write why I wanted to apply to this organization or this repository, and here is my answer. And then I have a small abstract about my project and what plans I want to like implement into this repository, implementation plan, the key components. So it's good if you can structure your project like this or your proposal like this, because they can just keep going and look at whatever they want to do, the mentors, I mean. Then I included some slides or diagrams about what visually it would look like. Then this is very important. Overall project deliverables. They want to know what is going to be there at the end of your project. What are you actually going to bring to the table? So these are the results of what I'm going to, what I was going to implement. Does anyone have any questions about this? About the deliverables, about the abstract, or so on, before I move into the weekly timeline?
I hope there's no questions. You could proceed.
Yeah. Okay. So the weekly timeline is basically a breakdown of what I'm going to do for this project per week. So it starts from the community bonding, and I've just included a small disclaimer. You can do that if you want to. Community bonding, and then I've done it with a 3 week breakdown instead of a 1 week breakdown, because I have a lot of stuff to cover in 3 weeks. Week 4, 5, 6, week 7, 8, 9. So these are all like small stuff, like whatever items in my checklist I need to complete for those 3 weeks. and then you have to mention your other time commitments during the summer. So that's it.
So we have a question from one of our audience asking, are there any other open source programs for which we would have ample time for applying? So I would say most of the open source programs are targeted for the summer, so you are little late to applying for most of them. They usually start in like anywhere from usually the application process starts in like the first week of January to all the way till March, and the program people start working on it by uh, May. So you are pretty late for this term year, but you could again try for next year. Hacktoberfest is one of the open source programs which come in the month of October. You could try for that, and there's also the Linux Foundation mentorship. So that is about working with cloud native solutions, and they also have coming for GSOC, but they also have separate programs that happen in the winter. So those are two programs which you could take a look at. I'll also share a GitHub page which has a list of open source organizations you could contribute to. You could find that in the comment section.
Yeah, and even if it's a little late to apply now, it should, like, you should be able to, you know, just submit an application because you get experience as to what mentors expect from you, how to communicate with them, and so on and so forth. And I've known people who have applied just like who just started applying 1 week before and have gotten into GSOC. My close friend is actually one of those people. Can't I can't tell you how jealous I was of that guy, but it's fine. The whole point is, don't let timeline stop you from applying because you never know what you might get. And one more thing is, a Hacktoberfest is not exactly something you apply to, right? It's something you participate in. And I really encourage you to to participate in that because it lays the foundation for your open source contributions. They tell you how to open a pull request, they tell you how to issue, format your code and so on and so forth. So if you have any question, if it feels a bit intimidating while applying for GSOC, in Hacktoberfest it will be made extremely crystal clear to you. So you should really take part in Hacktoberfest. And I think other like open source programs off the top of my head are, Girl Script Summer of Code. Like all of these, like Mana said, are in the summer. There's Girl Script Summer of Code. I think that's open only to girls though. Like not even kidding. Then there are programs like Haskell Summer of Code, but I'm not sure if it's that this year. Then there's GSOD's the Season of Docs, and yeah, I think the link which Manas shared in the comments is also very helpful.
So guys, I think like more than what we know, it's better if you guys do the search for yourself, because eventually you would have
Yeah,
to understand do this yourself. So it's better like you guys search for programs.
yeah. Like the ones we mentioned are just a drop in the ocean. There are so many programs that you could
So
just
many.
look. Yeah. And you could find programs that are tailored for you. There are probably open source programs just for app development, or, open source programs which also are hackathons and so on and so forth.
Yep.
Yep, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. We are done. I hope there's no more questions. Uh,
Yeah, thank you, Manas and Tigant, for a wonderful and interactive session. I personally learned a lot about open source, and I really thank you guys for it, for taking time to do this. And yeah, we'll be sharing the slides with the participants so that they can go through your proposals and learn from that. And I definitely recommend all of them to apply for this year's GSOC. And thank you so much, guys, once again.
Yeah, absolutely no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me, and thank you Tech Club for
Yeah.
organizing talk.
Feels good to be in a tech club session,
Yeah, feels good to be back with the
man.
EC department of
EC
SSN College.
department, Tech Club, SSN Tech Club. Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for the promotion.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. Thank you, Manas. So
Guys, go attend the Tech Club. What is the yearly fest? What is it? It's not
we
Corona.
have
It's not Corona anymore.
yeah, it's called Convol. And
Conval. Yeah.
yeah, it's a interdepartment fest, and we also have Zenith coming up for
Oh
different
man,
domains.
Zenith.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a throwback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna cut a clip of this and post it in our Instagram saying, we have people who promote this. Okay. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good day, guys.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
See you.
Thank you.